So presentation number one is again mine. So let me start by presenting to you my topic and my research, and to talk to you a little bit about the human touch as the outcome of my empirical research on team psychological safety. So I will not spend too much time on the phenomenon itself. It has already proven and matured quite quickly that this is essential to what the team needs and the companies need in order to improve innovation, to improve knowledge sharing in the companies. There is a traditional view. The phenomenon was born in the US context almost more than 25 years ago. And the research themselves say that they lack the cross-cultural lens on it. So they indicate that, for example, when we talk about leadership, we say that there are leadership specifics in different cultures. We have Globe, we have Hofstede to see different kinds of behaviors, while for now the team psychological safety was taken outside of the US, but with the same phenomena and the same items that were there in the very beginning. So my main contribution of the research is to see whether the phenomenon is the same when you take it outside of the US environment, and specifically to non-Western cultures. And the contribution that I'll be making and talking to you about is this human connection and relationship aspects, which is key for the countries in the Eastern collectivist countries. So the gap that identified in the research that existed is that many researchers are raising awareness that it is a culturally biased concept, and for it to become a truly global, more research is needed and more nuanced approach to psychological safety is needed. We need to understand whether the definition stands and whether the measurements stand as well. If we take the US culture, in its essence, it's a culture of low power distance, low uncertainty avoidance, and individualism culture. When we take the concept to other countries, what I did with my research, I selected countries of high power distance, high uncertainty avoidance, and collectivism countries. So the teams that I worked with are based in Asia, in Eastern Europe. There is also representative from Africa and representative from Latin America, and I talked to these people to see what do they feel and how is team psychological safety manifested in these cultures. So the research questions that I had from the very beginning: how is team psychological safety experienced and enacted in non-Western culture characterized by collectivism, high power distance, and uncertainty avoidance? And what relational and emotional attributes shaped the emergence of team psychological safety in these countries? And after I had my first data, the third question has arisen: how does this interrelationship interrelations form the conflict management? People who do not want to lose the relationship, what has to be in the team for them to be able to confront each other? What kind of relationship conflicts exist in a non-Western environment? That's in the discussion section. So the two main theories that I took was the theory of team psychological safety, of course. In the Edmondson theory, we see that the main behavioral that team psychological safety focuses on is the voice behavioral. People need to ask questions, people need to speak, and it is sometimes enough just to instruct people. So you are expected to ask questions, and in many cases in the Western environment it works. But and the team psychological safety is seen as cognitive and behavioral concept. Not a lot is talked about what needs to be the foundations or the precedents for people to start talking in the traditional view of team psychological safety. In the cultural lens, out of all the aspects that there exist, I decided to stick with Hofstede. And based on the research that currently exists, I looked through 106 articles. The three dimensions of Hofstede which come up most frequently is the individualism and collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, and power distance dimensions. So I concentrated on this aspect, and what already is in the literature, that sometimes in the Eastern environment, silence, which is so much indicated in the concept, might not be a sign of fear, but maybe a sign of respect, or maybe silence can be a sign of agreement. So there are already nuances stated in the literature which I decided to look deeper in during my empirical research. So, the initial model which we used to look at the behaviorals in non-Western environments, so we took psychological safety and the current 7 items of behavioral, like asking for help, reaction to mistakes, dealing with issues, and so on. These are in the Edmondson's models today. There are 7 of them. And we wanted to see how the culture moderates them. So power distance, uncertainty avoidance, and collectivism, individualism. How does it moderate for us to have the same positive outcomes like learning, innovation, and engagement? The research methods, so it's a multi-method indeed, but the core method is qualitative. So in my study, I used 5 teams. None of them was from Western Europe environment. All of them were from either cross-cultural team or Eastern environment. So countries like Russia, Serbia, and United Emirates were in my focus. And also I had multicultural teams. I used different industries, not to have an industry bias. And I also used age groups from 25 to 55. And there was industries, age groups, nationalities, all was so mixed so that we would not, and virtual teams were there as well. So we had offline interactions with teams, and also I observed a virtual team. The core method was qualitative research. So I had interviews, semi-structured interviews, 60 in total. The basis for the interviews was the 7 elements of Amy Edmondson. And we also took cases and from the current work environment and asked people to explain how they felt and what happened in those cases. So it was case-based interviews. To check for validation, and we used the triangulated approach, team observation, and also an anonymous questionnaire based on Edmondson to make sure that there was nothing unspoken, because sometimes it's not easy, especially over camera, especially in another language and an Asian culture, to build this rapport. I just wanted also to double check that there was something that people did not dare to say but would write. So as soon as the data was saturated, we took it for coding and for analysis. We used the standard GOE methods, did the coding into many citations and many dimensions. And at the end, I'm providing you the summary of what the first order schemes are. We have selected the first order schemes, leader check for personally, leader knows this is emotional state, leader offers an informal support. So after looking through the citations, first group of citations were about the leader. So for these people to start feeling safe, they really needed the leader relationship. Until you have the relationship with your leader, it is very rarely that you have voice. You're all more in the subordinate stage. The second citations were peer relations and the extent to which people care about you outside of work. Can you discuss your problems with them? Can you do you go to homes of each other? And this was called the soul-to-soul connection. So people needed this connection on the peer level in order to start to voice ideas and to start to provide feedback to each other. And the third pool of citations were around acceptance of emotions. Can you talk about happy moments and sad moments? Not only keeping the formal space and the job descriptions, but do you bring your whole self to work? Until you can do this, very uncertain that you will also feel safe. So first, to feel safe, you had to be able to be oneself fully at workplace. So this order, second order schemes, all were around the human connection, which was so important as the foundation, as the incident for people to feel psychologically safe. And the interesting thing was that it is a reframing in some sense, because this human connection was existing in the previous model of Amy Edmondson back in 1990, but for some reason was considered irrelevant and dropped when the research was in Western Europe. So we are saying that now to make the concept really truly global, we have to reintroduce the care element to it, the human connection element to it. So until people in non-Western society feel the relationship closeness, the care for them as people, the emotional trust, they will not be able to feel safe. And in our discussion section, we say that this feeling of safety actually is the prerequisite. It comes before you start feeling safe. It's not the outcome, as it is in current research. It's not that it's not a skill-based, but it is a relationship-based. Trust rises, and then you start feeling safe. Relationship happens, and then you start to disagree and voice your ideas. It's not the other way around. So we propose this very view, and if there is connection, then we have the safety, and only with the safety can we go into the structural conflict, and we can debate ideas, we can create something new. Until this happens, the improvement of team performance and learning, unfortunately, will not be possible in this kind of environment. So the main contribution is the reframing and taking the concept to a global level, putting in place the cultural nuances with an emphasis on the human trust and the human connection. And we see that there is also a practical lens to it as well as an academic lens to it. There are limitations about the generalizability because it's at this stage 5 teams, 10 nationalities, and focus on middle management. We encourage researchers to continue to see the cultural aspects of psychological safety and as well as trust, and we'll continue to do it ourselves. And at that stage, I thank you for your attention, and I welcome the next speaker.